Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has confirmed that an American citizen was killed today in Ukraine. 68-year-old James Whitney Hill, a Driggs, Idaho native, was killed during heavy Russian artillery shelling against civilians in the city of Chernihiv. Hill had been in Ukraine seeking medical care for his partner. She is a Ukrainian citizen. His sister wrote on Facebook that her brother was killed waiting in a bread line with several other people when they were gunned down by Russian snipers. In Hill's own Facebook post, he repeatedly wrote about the invasion. Just 3 days ago, he wrote, "We could try a breakout tomorrow, but Ira's mom doesn't want to. Each day, people are killed trying to escape, but bombs falling here at night risk either way. I only have Wi-Fi a few hours a day. We have enough food for a few days." On Tuesday, he wrote that the bombing is intensified. And then in his final post, which was also on Tuesday, he wrote, "Intense bombing, still alive, limited food, room very cold." Hill's profile identified him as a teacher at universities in Kyiv and Warsaw. Now, that story is horrifying, but was apparently accurate. There was another story, other news that came out late today about U.S. citizens. This one from Russian news agency Pravda that claimed that 3 Tennessee National Guard members had been killed in eastern Ukraine. They identified 3 actual U.S. service members by name, saying they were dead. Now, if true, this could have suggested that active U.S. service members were fighting against the Russians. The report even said, in part, in a backpack near the remains of one of the militants, a Tennessee flag of the United States was found, as well as other items that made it possible to identify the deceased as Captain Michael Hawker, Lieutenant Logan Shrum, and Lieutenant Cruz Toblin. But it was not true at all. The National Guard raced out a statement this evening saying, quote, "This afternoon, the Russian media outlet Pravda falsely reported that 3 members of the Tennessee National Guard, which it labeled as mercenaries, were killed while fighting in Ukraine. The reporting by Pravda is patently false. The 3 soldiers identified in the article are either current or former members of the Tennessee National Guard. They are accounted for, safe, and not, as the article headline erroneously states, U.S. mercenaries killed in the Donetsk People's Republic." The statement went on to say that the individuals were targeted by Russian media based on articles from 2018 about a training group deployment that did include them and Ukraine's military. The National Guard confirms that all members of the deployment returned home safely in 2019. But this does appear to be an escalation by the Russians to implicate the United States directly in the ground war. Joining us now is someone who's been following the story as it has been breaking, Naveed Jamali, a Newsweek editor-at-large who also happens to be a former double agent for the FBI working Russian military intelligence, and NewsNation's Leland Vittert, who's covered the region for many years and is, of course, the host of On Balance. Good to see you both. All right, Naveed, let me ask you first, what do you make of this strategy by the Russians, of this report, and about the National Guard's response?
Yeah, I mean, Dan, listen, at best, it's a ham-fisted approach to try to plant a false flag, right? I mean, that's exactly what it is. It was quickly and easily disproven and loudly refuted by the National Guard, by the Pentagon. And as you said in your opening, there's just no validity to it. So I would take for it that, look, Pravda is not one of Russia's, and I put this in quotes, most reputable media outlets. I mean, it's sort of looked at as sort of this, tabloid journalism. So I don't think that this is a full-throated attempt at a false flag, but nonetheless, it is alarming. And it just shows that Russia is committed to using disinformation to potentially escalate and or, stop any peace talks that are happening.
But Leland, this was very specific, right? I mean, this wasn't just a sort of, general allegation. They named names in the report. They claimed that there was a Tennessee flag there. I mean, this does seem like someone put some real effort into trying to ensure that this seemed credible.
Well, the irony, of course, is that Pravda in Russia translates to truth. Dan, we were talking about this earlier. The area that this happened is in Donetsk, allegedly. This is all the way in the east. This is the ethnically Russian part of the country. And you're very right to point out that the Tennessee National Guard put out this statement. The people here in Donetsk and back in Russia will never read that statement by the Tennessee National Guard. They will see this headline in Pravda, and this further perpetuates Vladimir Putin's narrative that he is at war with the West and the United States is trying to help the Ukrainians, and he is there to liberate them. When I was in Donetsk in 2014 during the original Russian invasion, we'd get these same kinds of things. They were a little more ham-handed, to use your other guest's phraseology, but they would put out a tweet that there had been this slaughter of Russians at this certain intersection. And you would show up at the intersection and there would be red paint everywhere, but no bodies. And it was just this, it goes back to the old Russian saying, nothing is true, but everything is possible. And if they sow enough discontent among the relatively illiterate, uninformed people of mass Russia who are cut off from the outside world, certainly cut off by a statement from the Tennessee National Guard, well, that gives Vladimir Putin another couple days to prosecute his war.
And Naveed, I can tell you that the National Guard raced out a statement so quickly that there were even typos in the statement. I mean, that's how badly they wanted. No, I think it shows you how seriously they took this, right? That they needed to make sure that they got the statement out there really quickly. Because I saw, two typos in a kind of statement that they would never, they wouldn't have if they'd had the time.
You're absolutely right. To be perfectly candid with you, I was just enjoying my evening. I would not have even noticed this email that we got that the National Guard Bureau put out if it hadn't been for those corrections, to be perfectly candid with you. So you're absolutely right. And that's what kind of drew my attention. Look, I don't check out Pravda at all. And, Leland is exactly right. This is meant for an internal Russian consumption. It's not meant for people here in the States. So, but again, it just shows this really interesting shift in information operations and how important the managing of information, how important it is to call out disinformation, how important it is for the U.S. to call out potential intelligence operations by the Russians before they can occur. This is clearly, I don't want to say as important, but it is becoming a specter of the war in Ukraine, this controlling of information and, frankly, fighting against misinformation.
Leland, let's talk about something that actually did happen, and that is the death of American Jimmy Hill there. Can you show us on the map where that occurred?
Sure. Just north of Kyiv. Obviously, we've been talking about the capital for a long time, and the Russians have pushed all the way into the capital. The Ukrainians in the past 24 hours have been able to push their way out a little bit. Jimmy was up here in this area called Cherviv, which had been the last holdout. And we're sort of seeing on the battlefield, the better the Ukrainians do, and over the past 36, 48 hours, they've been doing a lot better against the Russians. The better the Ukrainian army does, the worse the civilians in Ukraine are pounded by Vladimir Putin. And you read some of his Facebook posts that talked about that, how the bombing just kept picking up and picking up. And that's Vladimir Putin's playbook, is to beat the civilian population into submission, to leave them nothing, to kill people in bread lines, to make them give up. And at another point, Vladimir Zelensky may survive as the president of Ukraine, but if you think about what's happening in Cherviv, especially Mariupol down here, Kherson here, certainly Kharkiv, and then to parts of Kyiv in the suburbs, he may survive as president of Ukraine, but president of a country that from the Dnieper River east is essentially a pile of rubble.
Yeah. All right, Naveed Jamali and Leland Vittert, thank you for stepping up for this breaking news. And I should point out, there's another sort of lower third on our screen that's supposed to be scrolling through, which makes it very clear it's not just that the National Guard is refuting this, it's that this is false. I just don't want people to walk away thinking that we're somehow saying, well, the Russians say this, and on the other hand, the National Guard says this. It's false. It's made up. It's invented. So anyway, thank you both for coming on. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.